Okay, what's going on, everybody? All right, we're live. We're live. Good. So, guys, today we're talking about sticking to the process. This is going to be a fun one. I'm looking forward to it. I hope you are as well. And just to give a quick overview, the reason I wanted to get into this is because honestly, the longer I coach, the more I realize that the difference between successful athletes and non-successful athletes is literally just continuing to stick it out. Like that's the majority of it. And so I want to talk about that today, but a quick reminder before we get into the show. The goal of this podcast, as always, is to help athletes build their dream careers in sports. So we talk about mindset stuff, we talk about training, we talk about different approaches to training, basically anything and everything you need in order to see the success that you're after in your sport. So we are going to get into sticking to the process, and we're going to go in 3, 2, 1. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Elite Development Podcast, the #1 show for athletes looking to gain an edge on their opponents and build their dream careers in sport. I'm your host, Kenny Dusseault, and today we are talking about sticking to the process. Today we're talking about sticking to the process because I've had a lot of conversations with athletes, even just in the last couple of days, if I'm honest, about difficult things they're dealing with in their lives and reasons that they can't stick to a proper training schedule and all of these things. And it made me really come to a realization that I had come to already, but I want to reiterate into a little bit more that can hopefully help you guys as well. And that is that, plain and simple, the difference between succeeding and not succeeding most of the time comes down to sticking it out. We're all going to go through hard shit. The life of an athlete in itself is a difficult one. You are going to go through setbacks. You are going to go through adversity. You're going to deal with difficult things along this path. There's just no way around that. And if you don't want to deal with difficult things, sorry, but this is the wrong path for you. Stop now, period. But if you want to stick it out, if you want to have that career that you've been thinking about since you were younger, you're going to deal with hard shit. And the quicker you realize that and wrap your head around that, the better. And so why I want to talk about this today is to get into the details, not only of how to better deal with that hard shit as it comes up, but, things you can do to work through it, things that you can do to embrace it, things that you can do to actually have the career that you've been after instead of letting those hard things get to you. So as I mentioned, you're going to have setbacks, you're going to have challenges, you're going to have difficult things that you deal with. And the key, again, is continuing to stick it out when you have those difficult things that you deal with, regardless of how often they come through. So when it comes to sticking to the process, what I'm really saying, what I really want you to take away from that is that despite the adversity, despite the setbacks, despite the hard shit you have to deal with, stay consistent, stay dedicated to the goals that you have, and continue to work through it no matter what. One of the easiest things that one of the easiest points to make about this is one thing that I started doing myself for a long time that really has helped me a ton, that I know can help you guys as well, is I stopped using the word can't. I stopped using the word can't in the way that, if I try to tell myself I can't do something, I immediately just reframe it. Instead of saying I can't do this, reframe it to I choose not to do this. For the longest time, I didn't like waking up early in the morning. I always told myself, I just can't wake up early. I just can't. And then I realized, yeah, I can. You know how you wake up early? You set an alarm for an early time, and then when the alarm goes off, you stand up. That's it. It's not always easy because the bed's comfortable, it's warm, you don't want to, etc. But you can do it. Period. You can. But people use I can't to justify not doing shit that they don't want to do. They use I can't stick to a training plan to justify not sticking to a training plan. The truth is, you can. If you're supposed to train 3 times a week, you pick the 3 times that you're going to go. And when that time comes around, no matter what else is going on in your day, you get off your ass and you go to the fucking gym. That's it. That's how you stick to a training plan. Period. But people love to say that they can't do it because, they're too busy, or they've got distractions in their personal life, or they've got this, that, or the other thing that's coming up. But the truth is, you can. So sticking to the process is understanding that regardless of what else comes up in life, if you have certain goals, there are certain things that you need to do, certain things that are non-negotiable for you to be doing. And if you want to achieve those goals, you have to do those things. So stop using the word I can't. Start reframing that in your mind of I choose not to, and see if that changes your mind. So instead of I can't make it to the gym 3 times a week, I'm choosing not to go to the gym 3 times a week. And then ask yourself, is that a choice that's going to serve me long-term in my life? Chances are it's not. And then as soon as you ask that question, and as soon as you get that answer, get off your ass and go to the fucking gym. Now, the next piece that I want to touch on when it comes to the athlete journey itself is a lot of the time athletes get into this mentality that they're the only ones dealing with the difficult shit that they're dealing with. Like if you're dealing with difficult things at home, if you're dealing with, a tough balance of balancing training on top of working full time, on top of all these other things that athletes have to deal with, understand you're not the only one. Your situation is not unique. You think I can't keep on my training plan because, I'm dealing with this tough stuff at home, yet there's someone down the road that's dealing with something 10 times worse at home that's sticking to their fucking plan because their goals matter to them. So again, you've got to ask yourself, which athlete do you want to be? Which person do you want to be? The one that gets discouraged and quits the second that things aren't going their way, or the one that sticks it out because their goals are actually important to them? Like even when I moved to Calgary and I started working at the Athlete Factory, they paid us nothing. And like that was the way the gym was set up. They didn't do anything illegal to me or anything, but you started off with a 200-hour internship. So I was living in a new city with a bunch of people I didn't know, working every single day for free, because I knew that if I was going to make it in this industry, this was the only gym in Canada that responded to my resume. So if I was going to make it in this industry, I needed to stick out this 200 hours of not making a dime and then having to build up my own clientele from that point on, because there were literally no other options. So if you're here now and you're thinking, I want to fight in the UFC one day, I want to make a career as an athlete, I want to, do all of these great things in my career. But then when things get difficult or things aren't going your way or things are stressful, you start using that as reasons not to continue training. Understand, you're taking the fucking easy way out. You're taking the easy way out. You're making the decision not to do something uncomfortable that is going to lead you towards the goals you have for your career. It's not because something came up. You're making the decision. You are in control. So if you truly want to achieve the goals that you have, you need to stick it out. You need to stick to the process. Now, I understand as I say this, that it's not always an easy thing to do. Life does get stressful. Things do get difficult. It's tough to continue to push forward when things are going that way. But I want to go over a few things that are going to help you in terms of how to stick it out on those days where you feel like you want to quit. So the first thing is set expectations. Understand that if you want to achieve anything at a high level, it's going to take a long time. When I moved to Calgary 6 years ago, I didn't have that really firm in my mind. I was expecting to, kind of be able to be making a good living pretty quickly. And basically a quick summary of how the last 6 years went. When I moved here, I was in the internship. I was getting paid nothing. Then it was up to me to build up my own clientele. After about a year, I had built up like a livable wage, not great, but survivable. And then we got shifted to becoming salaried employees, where we got paid absolute garbage to work basically every waking hour of the day. And so I was back to that point of feeling like I was always working and never had any money. And then after about a year and a half of working on the salary, I quit the job that I had to go all in on my own business. So I started back from scratch. And then starting back from scratch, 4 months later, I built up a little bit of a clientele. I was at that, survivable point again. And then a good old thing called COVID came through and shut the world down, which destroyed the business. And then over the next 2 years, I built the business back up. I got my gym opened. COVID shut my gym down again. And then half my clients went away with that second COVID shutdown. And then so I was starting back from scratch again. And then over the last year and a half or so, we've broken back up to a point where things are in a very good spot. So if I had had that mentality right off the start that this shit's going to take a long time, do not expect to be, living it up and comfortable within the first 6 months, that would have been a lot easier mentally for me to understand that I'm still not quote unquote there because this shit takes a long time. Now I fully understand that I have a lot bigger goals for my coaching career, and that's not going to happen overnight. I've got to put in shit tons of work every single day to put myself towards those goals. But the first thing I want you to do is set expectations. Understand that if you want to achieve big things in your athletic career, it is going to take a long time. You're not just going to wake up tomorrow and be a world champion athlete. And if you're not waking up tomorrow and putting the work into that goal, it's never going to happen for you at all. Now, the next thing I need you to start doing is setting smaller milestones. So along that path, like if your goal is UFC world champion, you need to celebrate before the day that you achieve UFC world champion. That can't be your next celebration. Why not? Because that is a long way away, like we just said. And a lot of the time, athletes get discouraged along that path. Other things happen, setbacks happen, and they go, man, my goal is so far away that it just knocks them off track because they're so far away from what they actually want to achieve. So I need you to set smaller milestones. Yes, have that ultimate goal in the back of your mind. Understand what you are actually working towards, but then set smaller goals within that. Like as an example, I have financial goals for my company and my future, but I have smaller ones along the way. I want this company to be making a lot of money down the road because I want to be able to provide a nice life for my family. I want to have a team of coaches and be able to help them provide nice lives for their family. I want to make a difference in this industry where coaches are notoriously overworked and underpaid, and create a system that coaches can actually make good livable wages and work reasonable hours. And so if I'm going to do that, my company needs to be making a lot of money. But if I have the goal, if I'm here right now, and then I have the goal of being 15 levels above that right now, that's going to be very discouraging when I'm not there very quickly. So I set smaller goals along that path so that at all times, I'm not where I want to be, but I'm further along than where I was. So that's still a positive. That's still a win. So as an example, if you're an athlete right now and you want to be a UFC world champion one day, but right now you have 2 amateur fights, make your first goal, fight 3 times in 2024. And then by the end of 2024, you'll have 6, 7 fights, depending on how many more you get in 2023. And then by the time 2024 is over, if you've achieved that goal of having those 7 fights, then now you can understand that the next goal can be turning pro. I have the experience under my belt. Now the next goal is turning pro. So then you can create the plan. What do I need to be doing right now before I turn pro to set myself up for success? And then you can put that action plan into work to make sure that you're setting yourself up for success for every step along the way. Then in the pro career, what's your plan? I want to fight 10 times before I reach the UFC. So I want those 3 fights on that small amateur show. I want to fight for a title around my 4th or 5th fight. Then after I get the title fight, I want to move into a bigger promotion. And then I want 3, 4 fights before then. And then I want to make the UFC. So now you have your action plan. You have your steps along the way. Even if it doesn't work exactly that way, you have at least a brief idea of how you want to go about it. And in turn, what's going to allow you to succeed when you get further down the road. Does that make sense? So the other thing I really want to touch on, and this is going to be the last thing before we wrap up, is that these goals that you have for your career, whether it's UFC world champion, whether it's just making a career in your sport, whatever it might be, these goals you have in your career, you've got to understand that they come from building self-belief. Even like today, I'm nowhere near where I want to be through the end of my coaching career, but it is so certain in my mind, there's no doubt that every goal I have for my career is going to happen. It's just a matter of time. And the reason there's no doubt in my mind is because I work on my mindset every day. I work on reaffirming that to myself every day. And so many of you guys want these big things for your career, but then you don't back it up every day. You don't act like the person you need to be in order to achieve those things. You don't put the work in the gym, or you do put the work in the gym, but you don't do recovery work. You don't eat well. You don't do your strength and conditioning. You don't do the things outside of the gym that create that athlete. And why not? Honestly, more times than not, I believe the reason that athletes aren't putting the right work in or are fooling themselves into thinking the fact that they're at the MMA gym 6 times a week means that they're going to achieve anything. The reason that athletes do this is they don't believe that they're going to achieve those goals. So they're setting themselves up to fail. They're not doing the right shit intentionally, subconsciously maybe, but they're not doing the right shit subconsciously so that they have a reason why they didn't achieve it when they fail as they believe they will. Because guys, I'll tell you, it is not complicated to become a high-level professional athlete. It's not. The blueprint is there. All you need to do is literally look at the people who have done it already and model what you're doing after what they've been doing. The blueprint is there for you. But the reason you don't follow it is because you don't believe you deserve to be there. I'm going to say that one more time. The blueprint is there for you, but the reason you don't follow it is because you don't believe that you deserve to be there. So you self-sabotage yourself so that you have reasons and you have excuses you can fall back on when you inevitably fail. But the thing is, if you spend time working on your self-belief, if you spent time working on your mindset, working on the internal, you would put yourself in a position where you understand that every athlete that actually has made it there, every athlete that actually has built their career, started where you did too. They started not there yet. They started on the path. The only difference between you and them is that they kept fucking going when you made excuses and you fucking quit. That's it. So start working on the internal if you want to create a path for yourself to actually achieve the goals that you have for your career. Because one thing, and the final thing before we wrap up, is just understand that this whole path, this whole journey of becoming an athlete isn't just about the skill set. It's not just about the physical. It's becoming the person that can actually achieve those goals. Because, yeah, there are some people that make it pretty far and they're, they've got, not saying that every person at those levels don't have their issues. They do, of course. But becoming the person, having the discipline, having the dedication, and learning how to create that in yourself is what's going to allow you to reach those levels. Because regardless of who you're thinking of, who you're looking at, everyone that makes it to those top levels have those traits. They're disciplined. They've got that character. And not all of them started with that. Because a lot of the time I hear athletes say things like that, oh, I'm just not disciplined enough. Then become more disciplined. Don't just use it as an excuse, oh, I'm just not disciplined enough. Fucking cool. How do you change that? Because if the goal is important to you, then discipline is an important part of that goal. So you need to learn how to build it. You can't just use the excuse, I'm not disciplined enough, so I can't make it. So guys, I hope this was valuable. I hope you got some good out of that. If you did, I'd love to know what it is. Make sure to subscribe to the show, subscribe to the YouTube channel, wherever it is you're listening. My big ask, as always, is share the show with a friend, share it with a teammate, share it with someone who will get value from this message. So I appreciate you all for tuning in. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day, and I'll catch you on the next episode.